Hello again, everybody. My name is Mark, and today I'll talk about some tips for IELTS listening. Okay, now IELTS listening is the part of your IELTS where it can get your scores higher. Okay, it is one of the most simplest parts in IELTS. Okay, so if you follow my tips, I'm sure it will raise your IELTS score. Okay, so let's try to start. Okay, first one is follow instructions. Okay, now following instructions is always important. For example, you need to read the instructions, like when it says write no more than 3 words, you need to write no more than 3 words. Don't write 4 words, don't write 5 words. Okay, you need to write 1, 2 or 3 words only. Of course, always follow the instructions. Okay, next is get used to British English. Now this is also important because in IELTS most accents and English is actually British English. Alright, so there are Canadian accents, there are American accents, but mostly it is in British. So get used to British English. Of course, you need to get used to British vocabulary as well, right? So British vocabulary, like for example, in American English, they call it, for example, truck, and in British English, it is lorry. Okay, example, chips in American English is like the chips, the potato chips, and in British English, it is actually the fries, French fries. So it is a little different. So you need to get used to it. You need to learn it. All right. So one thing that I can give you an advice with is you need to try to watch BBC. It is really good for practicing British English. Okay. And in the internet, you can search a lot of vocabularies. Just search American English versus British English, or American vocabulary versus British vocabulary. So you can actually see a lot of vocabularies there. Right? So try to get used to British English. It is very important. All right? Next, spelling counts. That means your spelling is important. Okay, if you write down the wrong spelling of the answer, of course your answer will be wrong. So always try to write down the correct spelling. Right? Practice spelling as well. Okay, in listening part, you actually don't only do the listening, you are also doing the writing and the reading. So listening, writing, and reading skill, it is actually being done in this part. So that is very important. Okay. Next one is singular versus plural. All right. So you need to, of course, listening. You need to listen well. Singular and plural. There are many mistakes. A lot of my students have mistakes with this one. For example, cat, but you know the voice said cats. Okay, book, books. Right, there are some of course there's an S or ES pronunciation, so you need to listen well. Get used to listening. Right, BBC, again, try to listen to those. Okay, stores, so it's different. Right, so get used to that, be aware of it. And of course, practice tests. There are of course, that is the most obvious tip. You always need to practice if you want to be better in English, right? So always do some practice tests. Okay, in the internet, again, just try to search practice tests. Okay, there are a lot of practice tests for IELTS, right? So practice, practice, practice. I cannot emphasize this enough. Okay, next is predict answers. So predicting answers is always good because you have only like 30 minutes for listening and 10 minutes for writing. So that's really short. Okay, so you need to do all those stuff. So try to predict answers. For example, I'm gonna write down some examples here. Example, Example, she has 3 blank. Okay, so she has 3 blank. So of course you can predict your answers. Of course, she can have anything, right? But you know that it will be a noun, right? Because you already have the verb here, right? So she has 3 something. So you need to wait for the noun, okay? So try to predict, okay? Try to predict. For example, she's talking about time. We will meet at blank. So since it is at and then meet at, so you need to wait for the time. At 8 p.m. Okay, that's the answer. It's the time. So try to predict what is the answer, okay? So that you will be prepared, somewhat prepared, okay? Only predicts, only guess, right? Next is practice multitasking. That means you need to practice listening while writing as well, okay? So again, the BBC, you can actually try to listen and write down what you hear, okay? Practice the skill multitasking. So writing and listening at the same time, all right? Next one, be aware of changes. Okay, so for listening, yes, be aware of changes. For example, it will say the number is 2074. Okay, so you're gonna write down 2074 thinking that is the answer. But in the end, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. It's actually 3074. 3074. So try to listen carefully because sometimes they change the number, sometimes they change something. Okay, so what you first hear is not usually the correct answer, so maybe there will be some changes. So try to listen to those changes. Okay, so next is listen to groups of numbers. Okay, practice listening to a large group of numbers. For example, telephone numbers. Okay, example, my telephone number is 034-4341-028, like that. Example, that's not my real phone number, by the way, but yes, you can try to practice those. Did you get that? All right, so again, practice, try to listen to large amount of numbers and try to write it down. Practice writing it down, okay? Next is this pronunciation. Okay, this is one of the most common mistakes in listening part. Okay, for example, 13 and 30, 14, 40, 15, 50, like that. Okay, so try to listen carefully and try to identify the correct number. How do you do that? For example, for the teens, the stress is in the syllable teen. So 13. Teen is longer. 13, 14, 15. Okay? For this one, the stress is on the first syllable. 30, 30, 40, 50, 60. Like that. Okay? So try to listen. That's a good tip for you. Okay? The stress is here. And the stress is the first one. So 13, 30, 14, 40. Right? Okay, next is handwriting must be clear. Of course, it is very important. If the examiner won't understand your handwriting, of course, it is wrong. So it's not good. So if your handwriting is not clear, all right, so you need to work on that. You need to practice having a good handwriting, all right? So practice your handwriting so that it's clear. Okay, next, spelling, of course, it goes with the handwriting. It is important as well because if you wrote down the wrong spelling, you are wrong, right? So be aware of the double letters. For example, my name is Rommel. Okay, so that is Rommel, like that. So sometimes they actually say, my name is Rommel with a double M. Okay, Rommel with a double M. So that means that letter is double. Okay, my name is Rommel, where it's spelled as R-O double M-E-L, like that. All right. So try to listen carefully if it's doubled or not. Okay? So yes, that's it for the tips for IELTS listening. And yes, again, you can pause the video and rewind if you want to try to listen and review more about the tips for IELTS listening. Okay? So again, my name is Mark and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.